this was an unbelievable scoreline, an unbelievable performance from Manchester City.
Yeah, and I think we saw it coming. This shows where City are. Arsenal were ruthless.
These Man City players, you could have all of the ability, all the coaching in the world, but your desire to keep it out is what I'm questioning now. For Arsenal, it is looking good. Are we still saying they need a striker? All of these excuses 2 weeks ago when they were losing, they seem to have all gone away again.
I still think they need somebody, so let's see if they can do some business.
Miles Lewis-Skelly, who I think is brilliant. In the first game between the two this season, Erling Haaland responded to his little antics on the sideline as, "Who even are you?" Well, they know who he is now.
I like that he's got a bit of personality as well in regards to doing that little celebration. With Haaland as well, you know, when you say, like, stay humble and then don't score for 8 games, I think he's been humbled himself because even when he scored, he didn't go and give Gabriel anything, did he?
It's Premier League All Access with me, Sam Matterface, talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook, and for the first time, it's Troy Deeney, who is here. Hi, Troy, you okay?
How are we, legend? How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Cheers for joining Premier League All Access after what has been a brilliant weekend. I mean, I noticed that behind you, if anyone's watching on YouTube, by the way, the podcast is available on YouTube, you can see 2 of your favourite shirts that you've brought with you for sort of show and tell. Is that right?
No, this is more, they're not my favourite shirts. These are just ones I thought Alex Crook's having a bit of a bad weekend. So I'd just like to remind him of what, he keeps reminding us of what Man United used to be.
Yeah.
So I just thought I'd bring my friends Zlatan and Wayne to show what it's like to have a striker.
Okay, yeah, because Kobbie Mainoo played as a false 9 yesterday. Get your views on that in just a second as well. But first of all, I don't know if you listened to Premier League All Access on Friday morning once we released it, because it was in the aftermath of, as Crookie couldn't stop telling us, 3 straight wins and only 1 defeat in 7. And a proclamation that after beating FCSB, that they were going to win the Europa League. And that, well, basically, he said...
We're back, baby.
That's right. He said it over and over again.
We're back, baby.
Yeah, that's right. Apparently, we are back, baby. Are they...
We're back, baby.
Are they still back, Crook?
Not as much as they were. It was tongue-in-cheek, Troy. It was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. And listen, losing at home to Palace won't stop them winning the Europa League. And you look at the team, right, and you mentioned it already, Kobbie Mainoo in the false number 9, false in every sense of the word. He looked like he was a duck out of water there, and I felt a bit sorry for him. It feels like Ruben Amorim is using these Premier League games now as experiments, because he knows that we're going to finish in the bottom half of the table. We're not bad enough to be sucked into relegation battle. So he can almost afford to try things out there and then actually pick a proper team for the games that we need to win in the cup competitions. I also feel like it was the day before the transfer window closes. He's made no secret of the fact that he wants to bolster the forward line. I think it was a message to the board. We haven't got a decent centre forward. Go and get me one.
How would Joshua Zirkzee and Rasmus Højlund be feeling when that team sheet came out, Troy? I mean, obviously...
Human.
As someone who's been in the dressing room, if you're a striker and you decide to play without one against Crystal Palace at home, you'd be a little bit upset, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely fuming. I think it's a really interesting dynamic at Man United, because I don't think either of them have done well when they've started, either of the strikers. And I think every time they come on, they look better as an impact sub as opposed to the one that's starting and leading the line. But absolutely, against a Crystal Palace team, there's certain games, Sam, when you play, you're like, I'm going to score in this. You just get that feeling before a game. And you'd have thought at home against Palace, if I was thinking that at Watford, every Man United player should be thinking that. So you're like, I'm going to get a chance here. And yeah, I just felt, I tend to lean into what Crookie said. This was a bit of a message day before. Go and make something happen. We know Marcus is on the way down the road, and we're going to talk about that shortly. But I just think even that bench is still, it's not good enough. There's a lot of people there, I reckon, Casemiro and the like, that he's thinking, how can we not just give him away, essentially?
Marcus Rashford has joined Aston Villa on loan until the end of the season. Crook, just take us through the details. He said in a statement yesterday that there were lots of clubs that were in for him, but once he heard of Aston... But why is everyone sniffing? Stop it. Why are you all laughing? You're sniggering now. That's not...
You just got to remember, John Duran has always been watching the Saudi League since he was a kid.
Yes, obviously. Marcus Rashford has moved to Aston Villa. What clubs were in for him that he turned down? And is this a good deal for everyone, Crook?
Wow, that's a massive question. In terms of clubs that he turned down, he rejected a move to Saudi Arabia. I think there was a little bit of interest from Turkey as well. But the clubs that he wanted to join, the Barcelonas, the AC Milans and the Borussia Dortmunds of this world, didn't make him an offer. AC Milan obviously turned their attentions to Kyle Walker. Barcelona, financially, I think we're always going to find it difficult, even if the president there was intrigued by the idea, because Rashford has played well against Barcelona in the not too distant past. And I don't think the Dortmund interest ever really got off the ground either. So in terms of firm offers, apart from Saudi and Turkey, I think it was Aston Villa or bust for Marcus Rashford. Even Tottenham didn't come to the table. And Samuel Luckhurst, who I really admire for the way that he isn't afraid to voice his opinions, even if he risks upsetting the club, as a local newspaper journalist at the Manchester Evening News, he put it quite succinctly. When Rashford made that statement to Henry Winter that he wanted a new challenge, he didn't have the 1996 League Cup winners in mind. So I think there's a bit of desperation on the part of Marcus Rashford. I think Manchester United drove quite a good deal, 90% of his wages covered, assuming he meets certain performance-based criteria. There's a £40 million option to make the deal permanent. And it's up to Rashford now to go and prove himself, because he's done a lot of talking, or rather his advisors have, because don't for a minute think he writes his own social media. Now he's got to do it on the pitch.
I don't think we should disrespect Aston Villa on the basis that they are playing in the Champions League and they're higher up in the table than Manchester United. So let's not pretend that he's going to a club that are fighting relegation. This is a club with a great history.
You don't leave Manchester United to join Aston Villa.
Listen, all right, okay, fine. Yeah,
once upon a time, maybe.
But anyway, it's slightly different eras now, and yes, okay. Manchester United are a historically brilliant club, and they're a huge club. They've got a great stadium, and they're a money-making machine for the Glazers, or have been for the last 20 years. But be honest, at the moment on the pitch, Aston Villa are in better shape. Yeah. So let's just not disrespect Aston Villa just out of hand. The fact is, this is an
And off the pitch.
They've got good owners now, and they've got Bodymore Heath has been upgraded, and they've got Unai Emery who's doing a good job. So, this is a good move for Aston Villa, I think, as well, because if they get a fit and firing Marcus Rashford with a point to prove, and look, we don't know whether he's going to turn up and be brilliant or whether he's going to turn up and be the Marcus Rashford we've seen for the last 18 months. But there is a chance that he could produce, and if he does, then you've got a player there that is definitely worth taking on loan, Troy.
Absolutely. As soon as it went through, my first thought was Jesse Lingard 2.0.
Yeah.
I thought, do you remember when Jesse went to West Ham and he just got his stats up here, 16 Prem games, 9 goals, 4 assists. And everyone was like, oh my God, that's the Jesse Lingard. We all know, and that move gets him out the way. I think the only difference was Jesse had to move home. I don't see Marcus leaving his home in Manchester to go an hour and 10 down the road to Bodymore Heath. I still think he's going to be in the same environment. I do think we'll get an initial jump and boost of let me show you what I can do. I just don't think it's sustainable. And I did a piece in the weekend in the Sun, and I said I'll happily write a whole column apologising to Marcus Rashford in a year's time if I'm wrong. And I want to do that. I just don't see it. And I think for Villa, it's a huge risk. The two players that they've brought in, Asensio and Rashford, their egos are much bigger than their consistency. When you look at what these players are, why are they not playing at great clubs that they are? They're really good. Their profile's really well. But for some reason, they're being moved on. That, to me, worries about that Villa group and how that will affect that Villa group.
And also, Troy, what about the wage structure? Because Aston Villa, as we understand it, don't have players that earn 300 grand a week. Marcus Rashford obviously had to take a pay cut at the end of last season because Manchester United won in the Champions League. So I think he earns around about £260,000 a week at the moment.
I don't know how he gets by.
It's difficult, He's had to use his club card when he's gone to Tesco's. Does that disrupt the dressing room when you've got players coming in on that huge wage that is very different to what everybody else is earning?
If I'm Ollie Watkins and his representatives, I'm on the phone this morning saying, well, hold on, you've sold the striker, so clearly I'm your number one striker. You brought in 2 other players who are potentially, 250 and above, both of them. And let's say, for argument's sake, Ollie was on 70, let's just say. Even though that would have been a good wage at the time, it's hold on, that big disparity needs to be changed. And I would be making sure at this moment where I'm the strongest in my position, where I know Arsenal want me, I know the club need me. You need to make things right, and it can do that. We've seen it with Liverpool. If you remember when Salah got his contract, it messed things up for a year because everyone's like, "Well, where's mine?" And unfortunately, us footballers are quite selfish. If you didn't know that, Sam, already, and we all go and we all want to make sure that we're being paid just as much as the top guy, if not in and around that ballpark.
Okay, before we move on, let's just mention Crystal Palace, because I don't think that we can ignore the fact that they were very good and well organised yesterday under Oliver Glasner. I thought Manchester United's defending was so shoddy and on the verge of embarrassing. But Mateta, brilliant, anticipating, getting in there, making sure that he was hungry enough and had the intensity and desire to put the ball away when it came back off the crossbar, finished a good chance after Munoz could run down the right-hand side. I thought the game actually started in quite a good vein, both teams attacking. Mainu hit the post, but then Manchester United lost complete control of the football match, and Crystal Palace grabbed control of that match. Will Hughes was very good in midfield. I just think they're a very good team. They're not the most entertaining outfit, Crystal Palace, but they've had a really good season after a terrible start to the campaign. So well done to Oliver Glasner, and I think that probably deserved a mention. That's enough tormenting Crook for now. Let's get on to the actual big games, starting off at the Emirates. Wow, Arsenal 5, Manchester City 1. This was an unbelievable scoreline, an unbelievable performance from Manchester City. Now, look, far be it from me to bemoan a successful day for Arsenal like this, but one of the things that's really concerning me, Troy, is that I'm a bit worried that in the Premier League we've forgotten that there are two sides to this game. Yes, attacking is great, but is there any chance that people, started to defend? Is that is that a lost art? Have we forgotten how to do that? Have the rules stopped us from doing it? I don't know. What is the problem here?
Desire to defend. I was watching, I remember a Kanji, was it 2 minutes into the game, John Stones wraps that ball into him. He has a bad touch. He flicks at it, and then obviously Arsenal on the counter-attack. If anyone watches his recovery run, it is borderline pathetic. And I know we're talking Arsenal, but I was at the Everton-Leicester game at the weekend, and the Leicester centre-backs were embarrassing. And I just look at it now and I think, you all just want to show that you can play football. There's a reason, I think Jamie Carragher said it on the Sky commentary, there's a reason why goalies are goalies. Kick it away from your goal and use your hands. And there's a reason centre-backs are centre-backs, because you're not footballers. So defend, head it, kick it, and then just pass it to people that are better than you. It's simple. You learn this as a 5 and 6 year old. And I don't understand now why these Man City players, you could have all of the ability, all the coaching in the world, but your desire to keep it out is what I'm questioning now.
Yeah, and that's not just Manchester City, by the way. I think there's a lot of teams that have got the same sort of
absolutely,
problem.
Yeah.
But let's focus on what happened yesterday. I mean, obviously they got themselves into a terrible situation playing out from the back early on. I think the difference between this week's performance against Chelsea and last week's performance was that Arsenal were ruthless enough to take advantage of the mistakes that Manchester City were making, whereas Chelsea let them off the hook a little bit, Alex.
Yeah, and I think we saw it coming. We previewed the game when we were in for Jim and Simon on Friday, and I think I went 2-1 Arsenal. Obviously, I was a little bit off with that prediction, but it felt like a huge opportunity, given Arsenal's home form, given what we've seen from City. And this is where statistics can defy the truth, because statistically, their recent Premier League form is very good. But you look at those games, even the teams they're beating and their teams they should be beating, like West Ham at home, they gave them an awful lot of opportunities. You said it, against Chelsea, they were there for the taking, and Chelsea just didn't do their bit of the bargain. But Arsenal were ruthless. I was pleased with Kai Havertz at the end because he missed he missed a sitter. And actually, I think it was Gary Neville in commentary on the first goal said he shouldn't be passing that. He should be scoring it himself. But obviously, he's got himself on the score sheet in the end. But this shows where City are. They've made some signings in this window. 2 of them are kids, or obviously for the future. And you can't pitch a centre-back in straight away in the Premier League. Marmoush, I think, will have an impact, maybe more in Europe, between now and the end of the season. But they've still got this massive Rodri-sized hole in midfield, and that is the biggest problem they haven't addressed. I'm amazed they've not brought in a defensive midfielder, even on loan, someone like Douglas Luiz, for the rest of the season.
Whereas Arsenal's starting to utilise the whole of their squad now. 7 changes for the game against Girona in midweek. And when you look at them, they've got options, haven't they? And a lot of those options have been bolstered by the fact that they've started to use those younger players. Waneri with his first Premier League goal. And Miles Lewis-Skelly, who I think is brilliant. I wasn't surprised he started the game yesterday. I know that Perry Groves was when we were doing the Sunday session, but I wasn't afterwards. I knew that he wasn't playing in midweek. Once I thought, he hasn't selected him against Girona for a game which, is not a dead rubber, but as close as you can get to. He's going to play him at the weekend. He's physically strong. He's good on the ball. He's got a bit of personality as well. In the first game between the two this season, Erling Haaland responded to his little antics on the sideline when he was organising a timeout for Arsenal as, "Who even are you?" Well, they know who he is now, and he cheekily responded, didn't he, with a little Zen celebration to mock Haaland after scoring what was a terrific goal, Troy.
Yeah, it was a great goal. It was a good performance from the lad as well.
Yeah.
There was a few things on him that I was watching and listening and probably questioning along the way. So I think he's exceptionally good. We have to remember he's a midfielder by trade, so he's learning on the job. But all the attributes of actually wanting to defend, putting his body in the way, and actually making tackles is fantastic. I don't like that we're already starting to put him against Ashley Cole, who's probably the best left back in this country's ever produced.
Who's doing that?
It was on the commentary earlier, like, he reminds me of Ashley Cole. It was like, give the kid a break. Give him a break. Like
he's nowhere near that level yet. I mean, Ashley Cole is the best left back that's ever played in the Premier League.
And you'd like to just think, like, just protect the kid a little bit. We do get a little bit carried away, don't we, when young English players come through and we're like, oh my God, he's the next such and such. But I think to go up and call him Ashley Cole was a bit much. He did very well. He is doing very well. I like that he's got a bit of personality as well in regards to doing that little celebration. I want to see what it's like when they're losing. Are you the same? I think the same with Haaland as well. When you say, like, stay humble and don't score for 8 games, you need to show a bit more of that personality as well. But I think he's been humbled himself because even when he scored, he didn't go and give Gabriel anything, did he? Even though Gabriel had given him a bit before. So for Arsenal, it is looking good. Are we still saying they need a striker? Do they still need more players because of their injury crisis?
They're not going to get one. So
no, I'm just saying, like, all of these excuses 2 weeks ago when they were losing, they seem to have all gone away again. What's happened?
Well, listen, I think to be honest, if they continue to play the way they are, now they've got all their players back and they're starting to utilise these kids on a more regular basis, they've got a great chance of
But
chasing.
Sam, they haven't got everybody back. This is my point. They haven't got everybody back.
Well, no, Jesus
just started using the kids.
Yeah.
The kids that were already there. Remember, he had all these injuries, but these kids were always there. And now they've got everybody back.
He has been using Waneri, hasn't he? He just hasn't. He hasn't been able to. He hasn't made as much of an impact yet as he has done in the last couple of weeks, and now he's starting to find his feet. It was always going to take time for him. Did they try to get someone? Did they try to get Tell? Were they interested in Tell? Everyone was interested in Tell. Tell's been hawked around like a sheep's suit.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a possibility when it comes to Tell and Arsenal. That's one that we're certainly going to be keeping an eye on between now and 11 o'clock, by which time this podcast will be long posted. But I still think they need somebody to prop up that attack. So let's see if they can do some business. Obviously, they tried for Ollie Watkins last week. I think Sheshko is their main target for the summer, but Tell wouldn't be a bad stopgap, I don't think.
Okay, where does it leave Arsenal going forward, Troy? Because they've got a big semi-final in midweek. Can they close down Newcastle's lead? They have a 2-goal lead from the first leg.
Yeah, I think Nice, both games at the weekend for Newcastle and for Arsenal make it. It's going to be an unbelievable game on Wednesday night because Newcastle obviously lost, kind of got away from the normal style over the last couple of weeks. And now you see Arsenal firing on all cylinders, so you should make for a great game. I think if Arsenal score first, it's going to get really ropey and very nervy at St James's Park. But I just don't see how they keep Isak quiet. I know he hit the bar the weekend, but he's just in a good vein of form. I could just see them going and scoring again. Okay,
let's move on to Saturday's game now, and a record-breaking win for the Tricky Trees. Forest 7, Brighton 0. Have you ever been involved in a 7-0 defeat, Troy?
No. Close. 6.
6 in a cup final?
But 6. I've had a couple of 6s, mate. Yeah, like Lords, you get when you get one, you get a couple of them. So Anfield and the Etihad and the FA Cup final. Yeah, not been nice.
How does it feel? Because I was watching the game. Brighton weren't that bad for the first half an hour. They just were a little bit off it in terms of defending and gave opportunities that they shouldn't have done by picking a rather naive team. But what do you feel like in the dressing room? And at half-time, do you go in? I mean, it's 3-0. I thought, come out, damage limitation here. They didn't do that. They didn't react quick enough to that. Do senior players come in and say, Gaffer, we need to change this significantly? What's the deal?
Yeah, and also you should be doing it on the pitch. Like the teams that I played in, the leaders on the pitch would always go, right, I know the Gaffer said we're going to go and press and get after it, but sit back for 5 minutes here. Let's just figure out what's going on. But I feel now a lot of the teams hear the manager and the coach's reasoning and just go, we'll just do that then, because if there's any problem, we can blame him for doing that. I looked at Brighton, and again, I actually thought for the first time, and I know Tony doesn't do this, but he could be under pressure here, by the way.
Fabian Hertzler.
Yeah, that was the first time I looked at it. It was like 7-0. You're not consistent. There's not a clear pattern of play like there was early on in the season. I just thought, is it a bit too much for him? But I know Tony will help him and provide. Tony Bloom will help him and provide assistance. But I just thought, did the Saudi move make Matomo look a bit left and right because he came off at half time? Yeah, there was a lot of questions there. But when it's happened to me in the past, mate, you sit in that dressing room afterwards and it's the quietest sound ever, because who can you blame? No one can blame anyone, because all of you have been rubbish. To lose 7-0, you've all been terrible. So it's just kind of a manager trying to pick people off the floor job.
At the end of the game, Nottingham Forest were relentless, rampant. They kept going. 9 minutes went up, and we were, who needs 9 minutes? Oh, hold on a second, they're going to score again. They just kept going forward and forward and forward. They could have had even more. It was a brilliant end to the game from Nottingham Forest, who were terrific. They performed so brilliantly throughout the course of it. And actually, Stuart Pearce stood up and gave them a standing ovation. And for a legendary captain like Stuart Pearce to do that, it shows you just how good that performance was and how well Nuno's got them playing. But that it is interesting what Troy said about Fabian Hertzler, because I think all of us sort of just believed that it was a little bit naive, the team selection from the start, putting Jack Hinshelwood in, having not played too many games, as the only holding midfielder in a game against a team that are very good in that area of the pitch, Crook. It seemed a little bit of an odd decision.
Yeah, and I think Troy's spot on. I think he is under pressure because Brighton went big in the transfer window, and that was a very calculated move. They knew that a lot of the teams they might be competing with for a European place wouldn't be able to spend due to PSR rules. So it was a concerted attempt to strengthen the squad and cash in on the lack of spending elsewhere. So if they don't finish in the European places, if they were to finish in the bottom half of the table, I would fear for him. And Troy says he's not ruthless. He is, you know. He was ruthless with Chris Hughton, sacked him the day after the Premier League season finished, having kept them in the top flight. So I think Fabian Hertzler should be a little bit nervous, because it's not good enough, is it? You know, particularly at home, actually. They've dropped a lot of points at home. Their away form has been very good. But that was an absolute calamity in the second half. And it was very naive, as you say, Sam. Not just the team selection, but the fact that once they were 3 and 4-0 down, they were still chasing the game and leaving themselves wide open on the counter-attack.
And they played into Nottingham Forest's hands, right? Because Nottingham Forest want you to have the ball, want you to come at them, because they then can pick you off, and they're like a coiled spring. They just go. They're so fast on the counter-attack. So if you do that, then you are asking for trouble. One of the things that Bournemouth did brilliantly last week when they beat Nottingham Forest, I mean, Forest were off it that day, but they gave them the ball, right? They had 49% possession. They never have 49% possession, Nottingham Forest. They don't want it. But I do think that Nuno Espirito Santo deserves a lot of credit. He's reinvented himself. He's a different type of character now to the guy that was at Wolverhampton Wanderers. I don't know how much interaction you had with him, Troy, when he was at Wolves, but he was quite difficult for us to deal with. Now he's an absolute delight. He is very happy. He's humble. He's very sort of tactile. He feels like he's found inner peace in himself, and that's transmitted to his team. And his team are so very well organised. They're going to get into the Champions League if they keep going like this.
Yeah, you wouldn't bet against them, especially with everyone behind kind of stumbling. I think we all thought maybe a week ago they'd maybe just drop out to like 5th or 6th. But when everyone keeps playing into their hands, as you say, it baffles me. You know, they had 37% possession at the weekend, 13 shots, 9 on target. Like
Ruthless.
they're so efficient in what they do, and they're so selfless. And I do think that stems from Nuno. I think he's had that difficult spell at Spurs, where he's probably had to reflect and say, right, did I do this right? Did I do that right? But whenever I was played against him at Wolves, he was really, really nice guy. Or win or lose, very humble, very, always come and shake hands, whether they won or they lost. I remember seeing him after we beat them in the FA Cup semi-final. Obviously, we beat them in extra time, which would have been a killer to those.
And they were 2-0 up in that game as well.
They were 2-0 up, yes. And they started taking players off because they were battering us. But we turned it around in a 15-minute spell. And I know, like, Connor Cody and the lads, they'll say, like, we've never watched a game. It was, like, the worst game they've ever played in. But he afterwards come and found me afterwards and was like, sorry, I missed you out there. Well done, good game. Go and have fun in the final. Like, that just shows to me, like, a level of class that he never really got to show across and showcase. And now, in a club that's settled, in an ownership that clearly believe in him, you can see that the players and the staff are all as one. I think it's a wonderful story. And I've said it on radio with you guys, but I'll say it again today. English football needs them to finish in the Champions League. We need them to do it in a different style, in a different way, so that we don't keep seeing goalkeepers passing it to other teams and they score straight from the kickoff. This is how you can win a game. This is how you can win a game. But let's figure it out as coaches and not be system coaches, as I know Crookie loves.
Similarly, I was quite impressed with the fact that Everton scored after 10.18 seconds by a big lump of the ball upfield by Jordan Pickford. And after allowing the ball to bounce, Leicester were punished ruthlessly by a little chest of Decore who thumped it home within seconds. And I thought that was, I like that. I like every now and again, let's just do something different. Yeah. Everyone doesn't have to play the same way. I tell you what, though, Crook, I don't know if you've noticed this, and I know you're big on your old transfers, but there's a guy at Nottingham Forest who's fantastic. He might end up playing in the Champions League, but he's definitely got Champions League quality. Manchester United should look at him. A guy called Anthony Elanga. Have you ever heard of him?
Tell me, how much did we sell him for?
Tenner?
Packet of Skittles.
And that was to facilitate Anthony and Jadon Sancho. Honestly. That's so bad, baby. I thought we weren't going to kick me while I'm down anymore, but no, he was brilliant, wasn't he? A hat trick of assists. I'm pleased for him because he seems like a really good character and just the type of professional that if you've got a difficult dressing room, he's come through the academy, then maybe you need him in there, don't you? So yeah, another shocking piece of business from Manchester United.
We're back, baby.
Right, okay. Bournemouth 0, Liverpool 2. Bournemouth with the best home defence in the league, struggling against the league leaders Liverpool. But listen, I've got to say, I thought Bournemouth played quite well in the game. Right, you were there, Crook, so you tell us a little bit more about it. But the bare statistics are they hit the woodwork twice. They had a goal disallowed. They missed an open goal, and they were definitely on the front foot. I think in the first few minutes of the game, they were certainly the aggressors of it. So, tell us how close were these two teams in reality? Because we only ever see the highlights.
I think Mo Salah was the difference. Not just tucking away the penalty, which you knew he was never going to miss, but the second goal was an absolute beauty. Almost nonchalant the way that he used Milos Kerkez, who didn't do a lot wrong in my opinion, as a shield and just with no backlift curled it into the top corner. A few people were questioning Kepa Arrizabalaga, but I think it all happened so quickly that would be a bit harsh. But they had chances, Bournemouth, hit the post twice, had one of those gone in, then maybe it would have been a different outcome. But I actually think this is a really significant result for Liverpool. And actually, if you look at their last 3 away games, Troy was at the City Ground. They came from behind to get a point there. They scored twice in stoppage time to win at Brentford, who were on a good run of form at home at that moment in time. And they've rode their luck a little bit, but still come away with a clean sheet and a victory at Bournemouth, who are on a club record unbeaten run. Their next away game is a Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. I think they'll come through that as well. And that's why for all the Arsenal, we're praising them for the way they dispatched City and saying that they could do this. They've, if they can not drop too many points between now and the end of the season, I just don't think Liverpool are for catching. All the time Salah stays fit. I
mean, it's interesting as well because not that he's one for changing his mind.
We're back, baby.
But he did say earlier in the week that he didn't think they were that good, Liverpool. But they're consistent, aren't they? And they'll get the job done as a result of that. I think they're good because they're consistent. Mm-hmm. He thinks they're not as entertaining as they should be, and they're not a great Liverpool team. But I think to operate in the way that they do, and I think the lack of adventure that they show which is a difference from Klopp to Slot, is actually the reason why they're more likely to win the title because they've got more control, Troy.
I think the fact that we're even having to make up these kind of excuses as to why they're so good shows just how entertaining they are. They score more than everybody else. They don't let in many goals. They're entertaining games to go there, but they're doing what City did a couple of years ago, which was have that effect on teams where you just forget that you've got to try and attack them. You're so worried about what you have to do defensively that you're just like, oh my God, you end up camping. I've been at the last 3 games and they're just camping and they're just sat and they're waiting the other teams, whether that be Ipswich, whether that be... but they even got Brentford to do it at the G-Tech. And we know that Brentford counter-attack all the time. But it just makes you just sit in and go, every time you clear the ball, it goes to Virgil and it just starts again and it just starts again. And they kill you with, consistent jabs before the big hook comes in. You talk about Salah. I thought that second goal just showed a level of class that he has on his day. He tries that 5-6 times a game normally. And he obviously got one really right. But it was an excellent finish and nothing that the keeper could do about it.
Going to ask you about whether they can overturn the deficit that they face in the League Cup semi-final in just a second. But talk to me about the Lewis Cook challenge on Cody Gakpo, which resulted in the penalty. Just one word answer. Penalty, yes or no? Crook?
Yes.
Troy?
Soft.
I thought it was softer than the marshmallow. I mean, it was... I
just don't know what he could do, Sam.
If he hadn't have given it, the VAR would not have overturned it, I don't think, Troy.
No, I just don't think that... What can he do? He hasn't extended a leg. His knees clipped his ankle. It just happens. I think it's disappointing when you're a striker because obviously you think you go on and score. But from a defending point of view, we spoke about it earlier in the podcast. The art of defending has gone, but you cannot touch anybody anymore. And if VAR gets involved, look, there was a slight touch on his stud, on his back foot, which did it. And also, Alex, I remember listening to you guys on it. You wasn't convinced at the start it was a pen, but once you saw the clips, you were like, yes, it's a pen. But I always think what you see in the original moment is not too far from the truth, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, Crook, we'll get you to answer it in just a second because you were there, and you're pretty certain that it is a penalty. But Mark Halsey, in his column in The Sun yesterday, says if there's any contact, it's minimal contact and would therefore be classed as normal contact as both players are competing for the ball. Crook, what do you say about the penalty?
I think Lewis Cook is unlucky. He's a midfielder playing at right back. I think he gets the wrong side of his man, and I think it was clumsy as opposed to malicious, which is what I said on air. But I think if you're the striker, that minimal contact is going to cause you to go down. You've got an opportunity to get a shot away. So I think on that basis, it's a penalty.
Yep. Okay, right. Well, I think we're both sort of like in different camps there, but I think that just shows how subjective it is and why the VAR didn't overturn it, Troy, and why the VAR wouldn't have overturned it if the referee hadn't have given it in the first place. So talk to me about this League Cup semi-final and Liverpool having to come from 1 goal down against Tottenham Hotspur on Thursday night live on talkSPORT. Are they going to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I saw Spurs celebrating at Brentford as if they'd just won the League Cup. So that shows to me just how, in dire straits they are. Liverpool don't normally not score in a game. And for Spurs to have done that, I feel like they used all their lucky chips in one go, really. I think Liverpool go and win in a highly entertaining game, 4-1, 4-2.
Interesting. Okay. Crook, do you reckon Liverpool turn it over?
Yeah, I've never been in any doubt, to be fair, as impressive as it was for Spurs in the first leg. I think at Anfield, Liverpool can go strong because, of course, it's FA Cup weekend, so they've got Plymouth coming up. I think the big guns will play, and I think Liverpool will score early, and they'll go on and win fairly comfortably, I think. And, credit to Tottenham for the way they dug in at Brentford and in that first leg, but I just think Liverpool have got too much quality, especially at Anfield. The crowd are going to be up for it. It's going to be a packed house. They're going to go through. It's going to be Liverpool-Newcastle in the final.
Outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Plymouth have won their first game in ages in the EFL at the weekend against West Bromwich Albion, of all people, and they've already knocked out Brentford. You never know what could happen down there at Home Park, mate. Get a couple of pasties down them to fire them forward. It's there's a bit of sea air. Liverpool might not like
Good
it.
pasties in the press box at Plymouth.
Yes, they do, don't they? They bring in big trays of pasties and put them there. Yeah, I'm going to
Just
go
on
down.
that, I had my first scouse pie the weekend.
Did you?
Very good.
How was that?
Lovely.
Yeah.
It's basically a steak pie, but it was lovely. They said it was a scouse pie. So.
Pleased you liked it. Okay, well, Tottenham are on their way to go and get a scouse pie because they are going off to Liverpool this week in the Carabao Cup semi-final after making a hard job of it, but they got over the line in the end against Brentford. So after a run of consecutive defeats in the Premier League, they've actually managed to win away from home, which is good character, I think, for Tottenham Hotspur. They needed to show that with a patched-up team and a defence of which none of them were, by trade, centre-backs, Crook.
No, and obviously Archie Gray is the one who's got the plaudits from Ange Postecoglou. I think he started like 30 games this season in what was supposed to be a sort of integration year in the Premier League, and he's played in all kinds of positions. So I think he deserves those plaudits.
Absolutely.
And I think we saw a different side to Spurs, didn't we, in the second half? I swear I spotted what looked like a low block from Ange Postecoglou. So, maybe he has found a plan B belatedly, and that probably will be the tactic at Liverpool in midweek. The first goal was the key one, isn't it? It's an absolute howler from Brentford standing goalkeeper, and that changes the complexion of the game because Brentford had a lot of chances, but for once, at home in particular, their shooting was awry, and Tottenham took advantage to pick up, I think, what we can say was a surprise victory. I think we all fancy Brentford.
Yeah, I think that Spurs away from home always a worry, and they do the things that Spurs don't like. And actually, they had chances, Brentford, and they pushed them back for a long time in that second half, Troy. I was a little bit surprised that they didn't, Will, because they usually do. But Antonin Kinski, and I know that he isn't everybody's cup of tea because he is a little bit... he's Tottenham, isn't he? He is basically a Tottenham goalkeeper. He is the definition of to dare is to do. But he's made, since he's been at the club, I think he's a good shot stopper because he's made some terrific saves, and he did yesterday.
Yeah, and I know he does give you a sense of like panic when he's got the ball at his feet because you are saying like, hurry up, the player is coming. But he does give you a lot more confidence than Forster did at one point. Fraser was just like a nervous bag of cats, wasn't he? You didn't know what was happening. But I just think for Spurs, it's massively important they get them two centre-halves back if they want to be able to play it the way they do. And also, just looking at that game, that midfield is all over the place. Unless they can give the ball to Kulusevski and he runs up the pitch 40, 50 yards, they have no control at any one time. They never go from left to right and keep it for a few seconds. It's just... you attack, we attack. You attack, we attack.
Yeah.
And every time they play the big teams who have more control and a better midfield, they struggle. To win and go 14th, and they're still 2 points behind Man United, by the way, who we're saying are having
Takes some doing.
I know we're saying they're having an awful season, and listen, Spurs do have an awful injury situation, but just to see where they're at, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right, and this, I think, for me. I like Ange Postecoglou. I like what he's about. I know Crookie doesn't. But I think when you look at this week, it's massive. They could go out to Liverpool. They could go out of the FA Cup. Then what?
Well, then it's a different matter. And I think we've discussed that quite a lot, actually, about this being a defining week. And it is a defining week for Ange Postecoglou. It either all comes good or all goes bad. I mean, I don't think there's much in between. Even if they get to the League Cup final and then go out to Aston Villa, I think that people will give him the grace. But if they were to go out of both competitions this week, then the pressure's going to intensify tenfold next week.
And then the following weeks, they've got United at home.
Yes, they have. And the Sunday session will come from there.
Becomes a massive, massive game.
A quick word on some of the responses from the Tottenham crowd yesterday, because they still weren't happy with Daniel Levy and the board and Scott Munn, the chief football officer, Johan Langer, the man in charge of recruitment, because they have signed a player. They've signed Kevin Danso, who was playing for Lens in France and previously at Southampton briefly, and also this played for Austria as well. What do we make of that acquisition?
It wasn't brilliant. Southampton didn't pull up any trees, but there was quite a bit of
4 or
Premier
5
League
years
interest.
ago, 4 or 5
I
years
think
ago.
Villa looked at him. I mean, it was a bit weird one because I got a message on Saturday night to say that he was having a medical at Wolves on Sunday, and within half an hour as I was sat down tucking into a nice curry and a glass of red wine. I got another call saying, actually, scrap that. Tottenham have come in and he's off there. I think I knew before Wolves, to be honest. So, that was a strange turn of events. But I think Daniel Levy saw an opportunity in the market. All the talk on deadline day is about Axel Disasi, but it's been pretty clear that he doesn't want to go there.
Well, he's pulled out, hasn't he? They've pulled out of a move for him because he doesn't want to go there. He wants to go to Aston Villa.
Yeah, code for he's turned us down, so we're going to try and save face. And that's happened a few times, isn't it, in this window? It happened with Matthias Tell, happened with Kolo Muani, who I think was always off to Juventus. They tried for Tomori, and my information was that he wasn't particularly keen to leave Milan. So it's been a tough window. But I feel a little bit for Daniel Levy because he gets a lot of stick for not getting deals over the line. But they're a tough sell, Tottenham. You know, they're not Liverpool, they're not Arsenal, they're not Manchester City, they're not even Manchester United, who still have that history that can attract players. They don't pay top level wages. So when Tottenham fans bombard us with calls saying we've got to do this, we've got to show more ambition, well, how do you actually attract these players? Because if you are Axel Disasi and you'd rather go to Villa than Spurs, I think that tells you all you need to know.
Is it true that they also had an approach for Mark Gahey rejected?
Yes. Yeah, we're rejected by Palace. I mean, but that's just chucking darts on deadline day.
But
Palace are not going to sell Gahey on deadline
also,
day.
the other thing is that can they only buy players that used to play or have an association with Chelsea? I don't get it. Like, they've tried to buy that whole back line from the youth team. You know, Gahey, Tomori, Disasi. What's going on here? You know, they don't like Chelsea. Why would you try to go down that road? I don't get it. And also, Gay wants to go back to Chelsea if he's going to go anywhere, right? And Chelsea have got a sort of silk road back to Crystal Palace, which they'll try and expose during the summer transfer window if he's going to move anywhere. Troy, why are they such a tough sell, Tottenham?
Because of everything that Crookie just said, and for very few times in this life, I agree with him. It's
does it, in the game, does everybody know they don't pay good wages? Is that like a sort of chat?
And listen, good wages is relative, right? They do pay very well. They do pay very well. It's just that you go to Spurs, and other than Berbatov and Bale, who's moved in the last 15 years onto bigger and better?
Modric.
Luka Modric, sorry. Yes, the other one. But
Kane? Kane just broke the record of Erling Haaland in the Bundesliga.
Kane didn't want to go; he had to go.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? For his career and for his legacy, I just say, look, when you start looking around, you just think it's a club that you kind of go and you stay, and people fall into that Spurs way. Like, I look at Richarlison. That's not the Richarlison I used to play with. He's lost the fire. He's lost an edge. He's lost a desire to go run through somebody. I think I don't know what that environment is, and we hear the word culture all the time being branded around. It's a bit of a buzzword, but something at Spurs is too nice. Like, whether it's the facilities, whether it's the actual fact that they're not used to winning or expected to win anything, but people go there and they just lose a level of that spite and nastiness that probably what Spurs brought them in for. So that's a big issue. Also, why would you want to go there? You say people are going to Aston Villa as opposed to there. Villa are 8th in the Champions League, still in FA Cup, still can make the top 4. You've got to go in and completely change Spurs if you're a player going in. Change the culture, change the dressing room, change losing 13 games in the season. Like, there's a lot you have to do to even get into top 4. And I think a lot of these players now don't look at projects. They look at where suits me right now. And I think Spurs is a hard sell for a lot of people. You won't get people leaving Bournemouth. Semenyo wouldn't leave Bournemouth to go to Spurs right now.
Interesting. Okay, Troy, thank you very much for joining us on Premier League All Access this week. You and I will both be going to the Carabao Cup semi-finals. Crookie, you stay indoors and just keep yourself warm in your child's hoodie that you've been wearing today.
I'm having my first day off of the year on Wednesday.
Oh, great.
We're back, baby.
On Thursday or Friday, I don't know which one, but we will be back, just like Manchester United, and will be a massive disappointment, I'm sure, on Friday when the pod drops. Crook, thank you very much. Love that. That was good fun. Troy, don't be a stranger. Come back and do that again. That was excellent. We enjoyed that. Premier League All Access will be back out later in the week, and make sure you tell all your friends about it. Remember, it's on YouTube as well, so you can watch it in all its glory, and you can take the mick out of Crook's hoodie yourself. and revel in those 2 shirts that Troy put up just to wind him up, really. That's what he does. That's what he does, mate. Right, we'll see you next week.